Today we're looking at a very innovative and revolutionary macro lens, the Laowa 85mm f5.6 super tiny full frame macro lens. First, overview and build quality. We get a lens hood with the lens and it feels high quality and nice, and the lens itself feels exactly like the recent lenses we've seen from Laowa. High quality, nice finish, nice design. Yeah, they just feel premium. They feel like a lens from Zeiss, I would say. The revolutionary thing with this lens is obviously that it is an extremely tiny, full frame, 2x magnification macro lens. In a moment I will show you just how tiny it is. And the reason it can be this tiny is, of course, that the max aperture is f5.6, which is pretty small. But the ingenious thing with the lens is that when you're doing high magnification macro photography, you will want to use a small aperture anyway, because otherwise the depth of field will be so minuscule. So when I'm shooting insects, I never go wider than f5.6. That is why I think this lens is brilliant. As with other Laowa macro lenses, it is completely manual, there's no electrical contacts or anything, it is just a dead piece of metal. The aperture ring has soft clicks in it, which feel very nice, and the lens is very small and lightweight obviously. Let's compare it to some other macro lenses so you get a feel for just how tiny it is. Here it is side by side with the Laowa 60mm 2x macro lens, which in itself is a pretty small and compact lens. That is why I like it so much. And as you can see, the new 85mm is so much tinier. Here it is side by side with the Laowa 25mm, which is also a very tiny lens. And here it is mounted on my Sony a6000 APS-C mirrorless camera. And here it is side by side with the Laowa 65mm APS-C lens, which you can see at the bottom. And as you can see, the Laowa 85mm is even smaller than the 65mm, which is quite amazing. Alright, enough fiddling with the lens. Let's take it outside to see how it performs outdoors. I mounted it on my Sony a7 III. And I used my Micael MK320 flash today, and yeah, the weather is pretty boring these days in Sweden, and there isn't a whole lot of insects to photograph, so I just went for a walk in the forest and tried to catch what I could find. My first impressions when using this lens were, first of all, as I've said many times I think already, that it is very small, but also that it renders very beautifully. I don't know how to explain it, but if you look at the photos, I at least think that they are beautiful. Even though the aperture blades are not that rounded, the bokeh has a nice feel to it, and the images, they just look good and very sharp. Just a quick note before we get back into the video. If you like my videos and want to support the future of this channel, please go check out my Patreon page. For $5 a month you will support me in trying to make a livelihood out of these videos, and also you get bonus content and a bonus video each month. Thank you. When Laowa made the 24mm probe lens, they proved that it is possible to make an extremely narrow macro lens with high magnification if you just sacrifice some max aperture. And since I tried that lens, I have been wanting them to make a lens like this. A small, compact, narrow lens with a smaller max aperture that is aimed towards photographers who don't really need the f2.8 max aperture that you see in other macro lenses. The only thing you kind of sacrifice with this lens is the ability to take portraits with nice blurred out backgrounds, but otherwise I think it's great, and I really enjoyed using this lens, and I feel like I would like to buy one myself. This could be my new favorite lens to use for small things like water drops or insects. And as you know, I am very into lightweight and small gear, because I think it makes the whole shooting experience that much more comfortable and precise. And still I want to use a full frame camera because I love the deep and very nice colors that you get with a large sensor. So this lens is really a dream for me. My favorite macro lens up till now has been the Laowa 60mm because it is very small and compact. But the 85mm, as you saw, is so much smaller and so much more compact. And another thing that is nice with this lens is that it is actually suited for full frame cameras, which means I can focus to infinity and not get any heavy vignetting. And also this lens is better optically, as we will see in a moment, because it has no distortion and it just feels more modern and looks nicer and feels more well built than the Laowa 60mm. So let's check some more details about this lens indoors. First up, chromatic aberration. And I have not seen any chromatic aberration in any of the hundreds of photos I have taken with this lens, so it seems like it doesn't exist. Distortion. As I mentioned, this lens is basically distortion free. At least I have not been able to notice any distortion in any of the photos I've taken, which makes this lens suitable, for example, for scanning negatives. What about sharpness? When I was walking around in the forest taking photos, I noticed that they seemed very sharp. But I still want to do a more controlled test indoors, trying different apertures with good lighting. So let's have a look at just how sharp this lens is. This is at f5.6 at 2x magnification. And yeah, it's just super sharp in all areas of the photo. If you see any slight blurriness in the photos that I'm showing here, it is not because the lens is not sharp, it is because the depth of field is very thin, so not all parts of the coin can be in focus at the same time. Here we have 2x magnification at f8 and we get a slightly deeper depth of field and even more sharpness if possible. Yeah, this lens is just very sharp. If you wanna pixel peep these photos, they are on my Patreon. If you join there, you can download them all in full resolution. So let's do a test also at 1x magnification, just to see if it is just as sharp there. So this is at 1x magnification at f5.6, and not surprisingly, it is just as sharp here as well. Actually, I would have been surprised if this lens wasn't sharp, as all the other Laowa macro lenses are very sharp, and as this one has a smaller max aperture, which should make it easier to make it sharp. Let's look at some more sample photos from indoors. The working distance of this lens is pretty much exactly what you would expect from an 85mm macro lens. It is around 6 cm at 2x magnification and around 10 cm at 1x magnification. So it is on par with other 2x magnification macro lenses. Here in the toy shots you can see more of the beautiful rendering of this lens. I just love the look of these photos and how the bokeh looks and how the sharpness shifts into bokeh. So to summarize, who is this lens for? I think this lens is aimed towards macro photographers who want a very small and compact macro lens, the smallest one on the market, that still goes to an impressive 2x magnification, and who are okay with not having a max aperture of f2.8 as all the other macro lenses on the market. And you will probably be okay with that if you're not planning to use your lens for portrait photography. Of course you can still use the lens for portraits, but you will not get that super smooth bokeh because the max aperture is f5.6. Thank you for watching this video. Do follow me on Instagram, do sign up for my free monthly inspiration newsletter over at mwroll.com, and see you very soon again in another video about macro photography. Over and out, bye!